Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Poetry. This time we are doing it Frisco style, as we have two poems from our packet that we will be discussing about San Francisco, which I believe is extremely relevant to all of us since we are from the community of San Francisco, the higher education community. All right. The first poem is called Frisco Body, Frisco Soul by Tony Robles. And the other poem is called The Course of Meal by Tongo Eisen-Martin. First up will be Tony Robles's Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. And I'm going to read this first. So you may want to follow along with the screen if you are watching the video, or if you are listening to the audio, pull out the packet and you can read along with me. All right. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. Suck the marrow from our bones, gut the innards of our homes, condemn the history on our walls. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. Bullet from a cop's gun piercing the black body. Scarlet ripples shiver over the skin of the bay. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. Our block, our home, our playground, our corner store, the place where I took my first step. The real estate developer's wet dream. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. The word Frisco removed from our flesh and bones by high pressure hoses, leaving behind the smell of death. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. Strip the murals of color, strip the heart of blood, strip skin from bone. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. The city sits deep in our skin. The light still shines in the sockets of our eyes. Frisco born and bred. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. Let's now discover what we can get from this powerful poem by Tony Robles. And just a brief explanation of what I'm going to be doing here. I am going to be engaging with the language itself. I'm going to be looking at these words, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be connecting themes together, right? You're going to hear me brainstorming about the concepts, all right? And I'll try to come to some conclusion about what I think this means. Now, note here, in poetry, there is no thesis statement. In poetry, the writer is not attempting to give you an essay, okay? So it is up to you, right? You are part of this process, because without you, the reader, the poem cannot exist. So it takes you, the reader, to engage with the poem, to flesh out the power that is embedded inside of the words, all right? So let's begin now. Frisco Body, Frisco Soul. Now, I'll start with the word Frisco itself. Now, this is a word that some would call it a slang word to represent Frisco. Some would call it a derogatory term to represent Frisco. Some who find San Francisco as their home, who are homies from San Francisco, look at the word Frisco and find a real intimacy with that word. That word represents a lot of different things, right? And in this common era, in the year 2020, right? Frisco, for those who were born and raised in Frisco, born and bred in Frisco, as the poem says towards the end, right? They feel, I have a sense that they feel the word Frisco and find an identity. What is that identity, right? The identity, this is our block, our homes, our street, our corner store, right? Okay, and these are really priceless concepts to identify with, right? They represent an urban culture. They represent a rebel culture. They represent a pioneer gente, a pioneer people, right? And so this title is represented throughout the poem in two lines: Frisco body, Frisco soul. So we've got that Frisco flavor, and it's attached to the body. It is attached to, fist fights in the middle of the street, right? It's attached to kickball at the playground. It's attached to walking and hiking up Bernal Heights, right? So that's the Frisco body part of it, right? Also, another part of Frisco body is it's being locked up in the jails of Frisco, right? 850 Bryant, or the Youth Guidance Center, all right? But then you also have the Frisco soul that is attached to this, all right? And the Frisco soul is something that is beyond the body. Here we're getting into metaphysics, okay? Because the soul is something that is supposedly outside of the body, beyond the body, right? One way to think about Frisco soul is, what are the things? What is the mindset of Frisco? What is the love of Frisco? What is the pain of Frisco, right? Those are all things that are connected to the soul, all right? So I look at that title there, and I am imagining that the poem will give me a glimpse about what is Frisco body, what is Frisco soul. All right, let's go into the first stanza. You've got 3 lines in the first stanza. And I am not going to be able to analyze every single stanza because we would be here for probably a couple of hours to really go into every single line. And so I am going to pick some that really attract me. Okay, and I'll start with the first stanza. The first stanza is, of course, extremely important because that's the first thing that the readers see. Let's explore. Suck the marrow from our bones. Okay, now this is a very startling image because here we have the speaker saying that someone is sucking marrow from our bones. Now, our bones, the our here is someone from Frisco, right? So someone from Frisco is having her marrow sucked, right? And what does that mean, right? What does that mean? Well, I think we can connect this to something like gentrification, right? Because that is what is happening in San Francisco in the year 2020. Those who are from Frisco are being kicked out of Frisco, right? And they're being cannibalized. This is worse than cannibalism, it seems, because what it seems like is, cannibals will just eat the meat, right? But these people suck everything they can out of the bones of the people, right? So they eat everything. So the capitalists perhaps are even beyond cannibals. Okay. The next line, gut the innards of our homes. And, that's a very powerful verb there, gut. Now, gutting, I think of a fish being gutted, right? And the fish's innards being taken out of it, right? But in this line, instead of the fish being gutted, it is someone's homes who are being gutted. And the person's homes, the person from Frisco's homes, all of their trinkets, all of their memorabilia, that couch with the plastic on it, right? All of it is being gutted, right? And it's being identified as something that is worthless, something that is garbage. So, the innards of a fish, something that you throw away, right? Okay. All of the innards of their homes, their identity, right? Because home is headquarters. Home is a place where you are supposed to be able to rest, recuperate, right? Plan things out, enjoy yourself, okay? And here, instead of all those things happening, the person's home is being gutted, right? Now, the next image from the next line, condemn the history on our walls, okay? And so, San Francisco is known as a place of art, a place of beauty. And in this image, all the graffiti, all the murals, all of the history that are on those walls, right? All the tags from the graffiti artists, right? All of it is being condemned, right? All of it is being erased. Later on, he discusses erasure. In this line, it's a condemnation. So it's being told, right? All of that art. Someone is saying that art is actually garbage. It's evil. It's trash. And they're making, notice, if your history is condemned, you feel ashamed of yourself. You feel as if you're not a worthy human being. And think about how the educational system works. Some could argue that our educational system condemns our history, right? Because the standard textbook attempts to force you to believe that you can trace your roots to the Puritan pilgrims who came over on the Mayflower, right? And, the Frisconites, what they are doing is they are actually making their own history and putting it on the walls, right? And instead of their history being respected, it's being condemned. All right. Now, I've spent a lot of time already, and note here, I have only touched upon the first 3 lines of the poem. Okay, and just note, I have not, I've only touched upon it. You, with your own critical thinking and power, you can relate to these words in your own way. All right, I'm only gonna go through maybe one more stanza from this poem because we also have to get to another poem. And so I'm gonna go scroll down into the middle of the poem. And actually, before I do that, I want to say something about Frisco body, Frisco soul being repeated throughout the poem, right? So it's repeated many times throughout the poem, and I think of those 2 lines that are repeated, its own stanza, and I think of it almost as a chant. I think of Frisco body, Frisco soul, Frisco body, Frisco soul as some type of magic, right? Perhaps even some type of voodoo or, mantra that is attempting to give to the reader, a certain spirit, right? A certain energy and power, right? A Frisco body, Frisco soul power, so that they can get through all of the travesties that are embedded into the poem. Okay, now I'm in the middle of the poem. It is a 4-line stanza. Our block, our home, our playground, our corner store, the place where I took my first step, and then the real estate developer's wet dream, in parentheses. All right, let's focus on this language, right? And so note that the person from Frisco identifies our block as their block. Right? But in fact, the street never totally belonged to that person, right? It's public ground, right? However, nevertheless, right? We have the slang term for street, which is block, right? And so people from Frisco made the streets there, right? They would hit up on the walls, San Fran Mission, right? Or Barrio Grande, Cortland Locos, right? And even though the public area, they did not have, a specific title to it, right? It was theirs. It was there. It was part of their pride. It was part of their community and their culture, right? Their playground was a place where they went to fall in love, right? They went to go, do physical feats of daring, okay? Our corner store, very important here, because this is a place, the liquor store, right? Where many young people would gather and they would meet up and they would hang out. And they get to know each other. They'd learn to trust each other. They became friends and families together by hanging out at the corner liquor store, right? And so this is a place of freedom. This is a place of familia and just lots and lots of love layered on top of love. Nevertheless, take a look at that single line stanza. All of this, all of what I said just, one moment ago, this is the real estate developer's wet dream, right? And how is it the real estate developer's wet dream? Because what we have here is, we have a a real estate developer looking at all of this property and not seeing the love, not seeing the identity, not caring about the culture that is there, right? The memories that built San Francisco, that gave it its international reputation. That real estate developer is looking at that home that was only worth $30,000 back in 1977 when it was bought by the common people, right? And that real estate developer is having a wet dream, right? And a wet dream, this is an ejaculation, right? This is a sexual climax, right? And the thing about this sexual climax is it happens without the person having to do any work. It is simply a dream, and then all of a sudden a person wakes up and wow, okay, I got satisfaction without having to do anything. No work was needed, no love was needed for a wet dream, right? And how is this a real estate developer's wet dream? Because that real estate developer knows that that house it's only made out of wood and metal, and that real estate developer knows that that's a $30,000 home. In fact, right, it's the same dirt. Nothing has evolved with the dirt, right? Nevertheless, if I'm going to act as if I'm the real estate developer. If I put the price tag, if I put a sign in front of that home saying $2 million, someone will come with $2 million and pay $2 million for a $30,000 home. I will make a $1,930,000 profit without having to do anything, right? And that is, I think, equivalent to a wet dream, okay? Now, I can keep going on with Frisco Body, Frisco Soul, all right? This is a great poem. I invite you to look further into the poem, but I don't want to make these videos too long, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now switch over to Tongo Eisen-Martin's poem, The Course of Meal. And I want you to please follow along with the poem. I am not going to read this poem. Instead, I want you to listen to Tongo Eisen-Martin himself read the poem. I am going to send you a link to Tongo Eisen-Martin actually reading this poem in San Francisco. Okay, Tongo Eisen-Martin, very renowned poet, same as Tony Robles, okay? And so we're gonna now move into The Course of Meal. Okay, I would advise you to listen to to pause this recording right now, to pause this lecture and to listen to Tongo Eisen's The Course of Meal, okay? Read it over as you're listening to it. Okay, all right. And once you've done that, come back and then we will discuss. Okay, let's start with the title. It is called The Course of Meal, right? And so when I look at this title, I think of something like a 5-course meal, right? And so here are different elements of a meal, right? That would satisfy a dinner course, for example. But that is not what is happening in this title, right? In this title, the course, right? Course is kind of, in this sense of the word, course seems to be some type of travel, right? So this is the traveling, right? So I took the long course to City College of San Francisco, right? Okay, so the course is like a travel, like a venture, okay, right? And so here, the speaker is saying that the meal took a course, right? Okay, right? And another way to think of it, right? That this class is a course, right? So course is also like an education as well, right? And so here we have the course of meal, okay? And so this is the education, the traveling, the venturing of meal, right? Now, some would argue that doesn't seem to make any sense though, right? What do you mean that the meal had some type of education or the meal traveled? Well, no here, that meal was not always a meal, right? That meal, if we're thinking about, a standard meal, that meal was once a cow, right? That meal was a rabbit. That meal was a pollo, okay? And in this poem, I would make the argument that meal is a human being, right? So this is the course of meal. This is a human being's education, right? And what kind of human being? I because San Francisco is mentioned so many times, and the first line has to do with San Francisco, I would imagine that the meal is someone from San Francisco. This is about the oppressed from San Francisco. The person of color being oppressed in San Francisco. Black and brown people from San Francisco. All right, let's take a look at the first line, all right? And I am on page 10 in the packet, okay? So the first line says this: apparently, too much of San Francisco was not there in the first place. Very interesting line, all right? So here, I'm gonna do some paraphrasing. And analysis as well, right? So the speaker is stating that, San Francisco, the illusion and the position that it likes to portray itself to be has never actually been there in the first place. Let's rewind a little bit. San Francisco at its root is named after Saint Francis. Saint Francis was a saint of peace. He was a saint. San Francisco was a saint who could talk to the animals. He was well known to be able to talk to the animals. San Francisco actually spoke, according to the mythology or the theology, however you would like to look at this, San Francisco talked to the wolf. And asked the wolf not to eat the village people and saved the village people from being killed by the wolf, right? This was San Francisco's power. San Francisco, Saint Francis had the ability to heal, right? He had the ability to help people with love. And San Francisco, if you did not know, gave up all his wealth so that he could then go serve the people. According to the line in the poem, supposedly, apparently, San Francisco has never been there in the first place. And let's rewind again further. San Francisco, that saint of peace and purity, let's be frank here, okay? It was never there in the first place because the Spaniards who named this place San Francisco, right? What did they do? They stole the land from the Native Americans here, the Ohlonies, who were here in peace at that time period, right? And so San Francisco, even the naming of the place was always a lie. It was always a lie, right? The second line, this dream requires more condemned Africans. Okay. What dream are we talking about here? We can either be talking about the San Francisco dream, that here is a place where you can come and reinvent yourself and become, a rebel. You can become a 49er over here in San Francisco. Or we could also be talking about the American dream. And I would argue that San Francisco is probably one of the best representations of the American dream, because this is a place of ultra wealth. If you did not know, we have more billionaires in San Francisco than in any place on planet Earth, right? So this dream requires more condemned Africans. Note here, the American dream, the San Francisco dream, what does it require in order to grow? And according to this line, it requires more enslavement. Condemned Africans, that means Africans who are condemned to hell. To be condemned is to be hated. It is to be mandated to hell, right? Okay, and so this makes me question whether, in order for the dream to continue, must we have more Africans, more African Americans, more people of color, right? More immigrants condemned, right? Vilified, used, abused, enslaved, tortured, raped, etc., in order for the dream to thrive. Okay, let's scroll down a bit further, all right? And let's go into a line that is on page 11, right? And it's towards the top of the page, and it states the following: Folktale writers have not made up their minds as to who is going to be their friends. Okay, so here we have, this whole idea of folktale writers as being progressive, right? Folktale writers, folk singers. Probably one of the most, some of the most famous images of these folktale singers, folktale writers. One person in particular who wrote who wrote songs and poetry and gained the Nobel Prize, Bob Dylan, right? And Bob Dylan was known as a folk singer, a folk writer. That's really what distinguished him in his early career, was his writing ability and connecting it to music, right? And these people are supposed to be progressive, liberal, helpful, right? And they're supposed to stand with the people. But the line, it's accusing folktale writers of not having made up their minds, right? Now, are these people writing, and are they writing with soul? Are they writing in order to connect with and be human beings with those who are oppressed? Right? And, or are they writing in order to, gain fame? Are they writing because they want to become philosophers, ultra intellectuals, but they don't see how that connects to human beings, right? That are actually suffering at the moment, right? And so the line seems to be accusing these people of being confused, and not necessarily being confused because they don't want to make up their minds who's going to be their friends. Are they friends with the intellectuals, or are they friends with the homeless man, the homeless pregnant woman on the streets? Okay, let's scroll down further to another line and another grouping of lines. And like with Tony's poem, I simply cannot discuss all of the depth in the poem because we simply do not have that much time. These lectures are simply an example of how you can look at language and then extract ideas, extract your own power from them, okay? And that is all I am doing here. I am showing you my brain in action. And so I'm still on page 11. I'm in the middle of the page now. I left my watch on the public bathroom sink and took the toilet with me. I threw it at the first bus I saw eating single mothers half alive. It flew through the line number, then on out the front of the White House. Okay, extremely surreal, magically real image. And I would imagine that if you tried to make sense of this using only your standard essay-like intelligence, these lines here do not make any sense. So I would urge you to take this line and do a slow motion technique with it. Okay, all right. So let's imagine what's happening here. All right, I will act like the I character. All right. So I've just gone to the restroom, right? And I have left my watch on the public bathroom sink, right? So I've gone into the public restroom, right? And the public restroom has, given me some type of epiphany. I have been illuminated because of the public restroom, right? And I realized, I looked at my watch and the concept of time, and I realized time, where I was going to, right? I was going to work, or I was going on to a movie, or, I was going to go visit, a significant other. I looked at the time on my watch and I was like, you know what? This watch is useless. I'm leaving my watch on the public bathroom sink because I don't need it. It's not needed in the situation I'm in. You know what's needed? I need to take the toilet with me. The toilet weighs, probably about 80 pounds. I need to take the toilet with me. The toilet is more useful than my watch. That is worth, $500. The toilet is gonna help me and help others because I have had an epiphany. What is my epiphany about? I took the toilet with me and I threw the toilet at the first bus I saw eating single mothers half alive. So I went and I had a realization that I don't need time, I don't need a fancy watch, I need the toilet bowl because I am in a war. We are in a war here. This bus is a monster that is eating single mothers half alive. And this bus, what it has done, this monster that it is what is this single mother doing? You know, we can imagine what she's doing. She's going to work, right? She's working for minimum wage. She's with her child, and she's taking her child, her daughter, to her grandmother's house, right? She's taking her to be babysat so she could go to community college, right? And you know, this monster is eating this single mother. The monster representative of the system in San Francisco. The greedy monster of capitalism that eats human beings half alive, right? Because the single mother is not even fully alive. She is going through a day-to-day motion. Now, what is my responsibility in this situation? If I am conscious, I do not need my watch. I need the toilet bowl, and I need to use it as a weapon. I need to use the feces in the toilet as a weapon in order to empower others. Okay, all right. Now, I wanted to say so much more about the poem, but I understand that, we only have a certain amount of attention that we can put into this lesson right now. And so I don't want to get into too much more here, except that I hope that this has helped you. I hoped that this can inspire you to engage with the poem that you choose to engage with, right? And I hope that as you go through these poems, you will feel the, more than intellectualize, you will feel the power in the poetry. All right? Until next time, have a great day. Please stay healthy. Goodbye.